Hello, everyone, and welcome to Meet the Professor. My name is Taylor Kemp. I'm the Director of Formed, and with me today is Dr. Arielle Harms. Dr. Harms, it's good to have you on.
Good to be here, Taylor.
This is your first time appearing on this general format of show, correct?
Yes, it is.
I hope it is a good experience.
Me too.
Let's hope it doesn't crash and burn, but it surely will not. So today, everybody, we are here to meet Dr. Harms, and so that is what we shall do. So, Dr. Harms, when did you begin teaching at the Augustine Institute?
This is my first semester here at the Augustine Institute.
Okay.
I started just in August.
That is quick and recent. So what is it that you are teaching?
I am teaching several classes in the area of pastoral theology. I've got the main class is pastoral care and ecclesial life.
Okay.
And then I've got the seminar for the on-campus students. I've got the seminars for distance students, and I've got the capstone for distance students.
Okay. And for those of you out there here at the Augustine Institute, and some of this is more recent news, but we have 4 different types of degrees. So we have an MA in theology, an MA in pastoral theology, an MA in biblical studies, and an MA in, what's the 4th one?
Catholic education.
Catholic education, also new. Okay, so could you actually explain to us what is pastoral theology and why is it any different than just theology? What is pastoral theology?
Good, yeah. So pastoral theology is theology applied.
Okay.
So we have to study theology before we can do pastoral theology because you don't have anything to apply without the study of theology. But once you've studied some theology, then it's how do we apply this, especially in ministerial settings. So how do you apply this in a parish, or how do you apply this at a diocesan level or in some kind of non-parish ministry? We're working with people and helping bring them to Jesus Christ.
So if there's anyone out there who's watching and they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I've thought about getting a master's degree in my time, and these people, and they're interested in pastoral, or who should be interested in pastoral theology? People specifically wanting to work in a parish?
Yeah, people who want to work in a parish or who do work in a parish and maybe don't have that background, don't feel like they've got enough experience or knowledge. People who are maybe leading an RCIA program, maybe they are a volunteer, not paid. Even some people who are just catechists are also in our program. We also have students who are working at the diocesan level, students who run their own ministries that they've created that want more knowledge about theology and applying that to particular people and situations.
Got it. Okay. So how did you end up teaching? Let's do 2 things. How did you end up teaching here? And then how did you end up teaching here for the pastoral theology program?
Where do you want me to start with?
Let's start with how did you end up here?
How did I end up here?
Yes.
Okay. Even that.
So give us a little bit of your educational journey.
Oh, okay. Okay. So actually, when I was in high school, I wanted to study math.
That's not what you're doing now.
No, it's not at all what I'm doing right now. I liked math because it was orderly and I thought it was easy. I liked geometry and word problems, things that you could think through. And in my mind, theology wasn't like that. I'm a cradle Catholic, went to Catholic schools my whole life. And my theology classes, if they could be called that, maybe religion classes, were more just about reading something and memorizing it.
Okay.
Right? So it wasn't that interesting to actually think about. I didn't mind reading about God. I liked learning about God generally, but I didn't know that you could actually think about it at a deeper level. So in high school, I read, senior year of high school, don't know why I picked up the book, but I read Ratzinger's Spirit of the Liturgy. And that changed the way I thought about theology.
Interesting.
I decided that if this is what theology is, I'll do that. And so I was a senior in high school, and I'd already declared my major as math to the universities that I'd applied to. And I changed it. I was like, no, I'm going to do theology. It became a lot more interesting.
I have to ask, okay, so how in the world did you pick up Spirit of the Liturgy? That's not like your normal coffee table book.
No, it's not. So I am an avid reader, and I would always go to our public library and look on the new books section and just see what was there.
Okay.
And Spirit of the Liturgy was in the new book
popped
section in our public library. I could not tell you how I got that book in my hands and took it home, but I now own 3 or 4 copies of it.
It's a great book. Okay, so then I also want to ask, so it's a big deal that you wanted to do math, and then it's a big thing to completely change your interest. So you said that you read this book and you said, whatever theology this is, I want to do this. But can you walk us through like a little bit more? That's a big change for an 17, 18-year-old person. How like what was going on that made you, to the extent, say, like, I basically want to change the trajectory of my life plan?
So I was a very committed Catholic at that point. I mean, in high school, senior year of high school, I was going to daily mass and making regular time for adoration and such. But I didn't see theology as being a serious intellectual pursuit. And so because I was very good at school and very interested in doing something that was actually academically rigorous and serious, that's why I chose math rather than one of the humanities, right?
Yep.
So, because those aren't serious. I've totally changed my mind on
Yes.
that. But
Hopefully modernity with you someday. But.
Right, hopefully. But so when I read Spirit of the Liturgy and saw that theology could be done in a way that was academically rigorous and extremely thoughtful, right? Where the answers where there weren't just clear, straight answers like we had in the religion textbooks, right? That I had used growing up. I was like, okay, this is something that I could do. It is academically rigorous. It is something that requires me to think about it more, which was what I liked about math.
It is. So if anyone's out there and hasn't read Spirit of the Liturgy, that is a very good endorsement, but it's a great book. Not necessarily the easiest book in the world, but it is.
It's one of Ratzinger's more accessible books.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So,
but yes, so you would need a foreknowledge of the liturgy, but if you're a Catholic, it is a great book to go into. Okay, so you change your desire, you want to go into theology, so you're coming out of high school, change that. What happens now?
So I had applied to Catholic schools because I wanted to, my faith was important to me. So I went to Benedictine for part of my undergrad and started studying theology there.
There's people from Benedictine cheering out there.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure there are. And decided at Benedictine that I also liked philosophy too. So was going to double major there, but then ended up actually transferring to Ave Maria, where I got my undergraduate degree.
Now the booze from the Benedictines.
I know. But I love Benedictine too.
Yeah.
So it's hard to choose just one school. That's the problem. But anyway, so I ended up finishing my degree at Ave Maria with a degree in theology. I only ended up with a minor in philosophy because of the transfer. But
okay. Did you know you wanted to go on to a master's and PhD?
So as I was finishing my undergraduate degree, I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life. So I decided to do a master's.
Just stay in the classroom.
Yeah, stay in the classroom. And, Ave Maria offered me some good scholarships to stay right there. So that's what I did, is I stayed there for the master's degree.
Okay.
And it was the same thing as I was finishing my master's. I'm like, okay, well, I don't necessarily want a job yet. I'm just going to stay.
What, as you were going through the MA in theology there, what was it that kind of grabbed you in terms of a more narrowed interest?
Yeah, so at the MA in theology there, when I was there, we pretty much read straight through the Summa of St. Thomas Aquinas. And I was really attracted to Aquinas' moral theology and bringing that into discussion with modern ways of looking at morality. Okay. So looking at especially Catholic social teaching and talking about rights and natural law and how those might fit together in a Thomistic understanding of moral theology, so that we can have a stronger framework to discuss morality and public morality. Okay. So that's what I was looking at as I was finishing up my master's.
Okay. So you're interested in morality, and then is that what you went into for your PhD?
Yeah, so my PhD is in systematic and moral theology. It's a systematic way of looking at moral theology is what we did.
Can you define what is moral theology for us?
Yeah, moral theology is looking at the human being's response to God and how we can look at it either in a natural context without grace or in a supernatural context with grace. The response to God, of course, is with grace, right? But the natural context is just how do we live well as human beings, right?
Very good. Okay, so you go into that. What happens? How long did your PhD take, and what did you do after that?
Yeah, so my PhD took about 5 years, give or take, a semester or two. And I was studying and writing my dissertation. While I was getting my PhD, I was also working at a parish.
Okay. What were you doing for the parish?
I was director of religious education.
Very nice.
And I continued that after
doing pastoral theology.
Doing pastoral theology, yes. So, and I continued that after I got my PhD. I wasn't sure at first whether I actually wanted to teach at the academic level or whether I wanted to remain in pastoral work, because there really is a need for people who have a solid academic foundation to be working in parishes and dioceses.
What did you love about parish work?
I love bringing people to Christ and the sacraments.
Yeah.
Right? To see people, not know exactly what they're getting into when they come through the door for, bringing their child for baptism or coming maybe for RCIA or for marriage prep or something, and to actually lead them to a fuller relationship with Jesus Christ. And, and in that to a full life in the church and the sacraments.
That is okay. And so how long were you in parish life? How long were you working in parish
So
life?
I was getting paid for it for about 11 years.
That's a long time. Okay, so then what happened to bring you here?
So I was looking around to see what I could do that would help take the knowledge and skills that I had and be able to pass them on to other people who were in my position. I kind of, would adopt other people that would be either new in our diocese doing that same thing at a nearby parish, or maybe people that I knew around the country that were trying to do the same thing. And I'm like, I should share my gifts a little bit more than just in this one parish. So
that one of my questions that I have here is, what do you enjoy most about teaching? I'm assuming you just answered it, that it's passing on the wealth of knowledge and then also experience to equip people.
I love seeing students grow in their knowledge and their skills in pastoral work and in theology. So
that is great. Okay, so we're happy that you left we're happy that you left parish work so that you can bless our students here. But I'm sure there's something very concrete about working in the parish. I've taught RCIA many times and feel the same. It's like there's just something so amazing about working with those kinds of people. But it is a great thing to then pass it on to the people who will then be working with them. Okay, last couple questions that I have here. We'll go top 3 favorite saints.
Top 3 favorite saints. Okay, Teresa of Avila, top favorite.
Why?
She is, a doctor of mystical theology, right? And also super practical.
Okay.
Right, which is totally necessary for pastoral theology. You can't just keep your head in the clouds all the time.
Yep, and most people probably wouldn't think, if you haven't read Teresa of Avila, you might not think practical, because you hear doctor of the church, mystic, contemplative, you're like, okay, she's floating in the clouds.
Nothing to do with me, right? Yep. Except when you actually read what she tells her sisters and how she talks to God, and it's totally relatable.
So if anyone out there has not read Teresa of Avila, where's a good place to start?
The Interior Castle is probably the best place to start, probably her most accessible work. So,
Interior castle for you out there. Okay, number 2 favorite saint.
number 2 favorite saint, Thomas Aquinas.
How come? That one.
Because
Because you had to read him for years.
Well, and he's the model of doing theology,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's the model of doing theology on your knees rather than just as an intellectual
Yep.
discipline, right?
If someone out there has not ever read Thomas Aquinas, where should they start?
With a good teacher.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a tough one, honestly.
Because Thomas Aquinas isn't something that is, his writing isn't something that's easy to pick up. We do use him in the liturgy, though, right?
Yeah, his
like
prayers.
his sequence for Corpus Christi is his writing. So that might be where to start, is the prayers that
The other,
he's
I don't
written.
know, this was not I don't know if you'll endorse this, but G.K. Chesterton has his book on Thomas Aquinas. So you're not like reading Thomas, but it is a helpful framing for how to get at Thomas. I don't know if
I
you...
haven't read it.
Okay. It's classic G.K. Chesterton. It's fun. And you fly in the clouds and then you dig deep and then you come back out. And it helps you understand a little bit of who he was. It might be a nice intro if you're trying to attempt to read. Peter Crave also has the Summa of the Summa. Mm-hmm. That also is a decent place to start. He kind of like has a pithy way of summarizing Thomas, and you're not moving through all the objections and responses.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3 favorite saint.
Oh, number 3 favorite
I promise
saint.
we'll stop after 3.
Okay. This one's harder. Those 2 were much easier. Gosh, I could go so many different ways in this. I don't know.
It has to be Augustine. I mean, you work at the Augustine.
I work at the
I'm just
Augustine
kidding. You don't have to
Institute. I
pick
do
Augustine.
like Augustine, but he actually, I don't know. I mean, Therese was my confirmation saint, so there's Edith Stein.
Yeah, nice.
Edith Stein.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one saint who doesn't most typically go by her actual saint name.
Right.
I've always been fascinated by
Right.
that. She is great. Okay. Do you have a favorite book of the Bible to walk through with either students or friends?
I have favorite parts of the Bible, but
Okay.
not one particular book. So,
Okay. Favorite parts then.
right. So, I mean, with catechesis and evangelization, the kerygma is big, right? The seed of the gospel message, or the seed of, the proclamation of Christianity. So you always have to start with Genesis and creation and how God loves us, right? And get to the fall where there's a problem and we're not responding the way we should to God's love. And then, the rest of the Old Testament is beautiful, and we see God's faithfulness and the Israelites' unfaithfulness
Yeah.
for the most part of it, right? But then we get to the Gospels, where we see God sending his son to redeem us, right? And so that's kind of the chain of the kerygma, is you start in Genesis and then you go to the Gospels where you have redemption, and then Acts of the Apostles where we have the early church and we see all the responses to Jesus Christ. So
That's a good answer.
Yeah, that's
You
my
cheated on
favorite.
the answer.
I
'cause
know.
you
I took
you
way
just
more
took-
than one book of the Bible.
You
I took
just
the whole
referenced
story
the
of
whole
the
Bible, but that's okay. We'll take it.
I like the Bible. Okay?
The Bible's good, and it's a good thing to read. Okay. All right. Favorite book, not of the Bible. Favorite book, we'll go just general popular level
Okay.
book, and then theology book.
Yeah, so for popular books, I'm not sure that I've got a favorite one on this either. I really enjoy mystery novels.
Okay.
So it was murder mystery, British murder mystery. Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Do you have an author?
I can't narrow.
You don't
it
have to
down
out
an
yourself
author.
to the
I can't narrow it down
Okay.
to an author. So.
Okay. So I'll remove the qualifier favorite. One of your favorite theology books.
Well, I've already mentioned Spirit of the Liturgy.
Yep. Can't be
which
that one again.
Can't be.
Gotta be a different one.
Got to be a different
Yes.
one. Okay. Ratzinger's Introduction to Christianity.
Just love Ratzinger. I agree. though.
Yeah,
He is
Ratzinger is one of my favorites.
He is great. Dr. Harms, thank you. Do you have any final thoughts, things you would like to add?
Just that I love teaching here.
It
My
is a great
students
place.
have been wonderful.
It is a great place.
So.
We have a wonderful faculty that you've joined. I am the beneficiary of our program here. It is a great program. So if you out there are at all interested in the Augustine Institute, you can just Google Augustine Institute Graduate School of Theology or Graduate School of Theology at the Augustine Institute. And you can find sample lectures. There's all different kinds of things, but it is a wonderful program. We have on-campus students here, but we also have a distance ed program. So wherever you are, if you're not able to move to Denver, no big deal. We have a distance ed program that you are doing lots of things for. So Dr. Harms, thank you for joining us, telling us a little bit about yourself and the work you're doing.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you. That is all, everyone. So we will see you next time. God bless.